Hey there guys, who's up for another self-induced ammo shortage? Amid a high tempo of arms transfers to Ukraine, the stockpile of U.S. weapons and those of allies are getting, quote, dangerously low, the commander of U.S. Air Forces in Europe said today. And worse, he warned no short-term fixes are on the horizon. I think it's very important that we kind of take stock of where we are in our weapons state across the 32 nations of NATO, and we're getting way down compared to where we were. He also stated, we're getting dangerously low and sometimes, in some cases, even too low, that we don't have enough. And we need to get industry on board to help us out so we can get this thing going. Now that's real comforting as we watch all of our military assets go overseas, including ammunition and a ton of other things. I found this report, the U.S. Security Cooperation with Ukraine. It's essentially a fact sheet of all of the things that we have sent over there. And you can roll through this thing and see quite a bit. But where it pertains to us, the average, everyday old citizen, we have sent over 35,000 grenade launchers and small arms. That's going to include AR-15s and sidearms. But over 300 million rounds of small arms ammunition and grenades over there. 300 million. Now, I don't have to think back very far to know where we could possibly either get a lot of these munitions and firearms and things like that that might be helpful, but we probably don't have access to them anymore. That would be the $80 billion worth of stuff that we left behind in Afghanistan. That's why I say this is self-inflicted. How can we voluntarily send so much stuff that's intended to protect us to another country that's not directly related to us, and we honestly don't have much to gain by them winning or losing over there? And I don't wish anything bad on the Ukrainian people, but I do believe in America first, and that's not happening right now. But I find it a little bit odd that we are sending everything over there and then we purposely left everything in Afghanistan. Are we purposely trying to deplete our military and get everything that we could use to protect ourselves in somebody else's hands? It doesn't seem like we're doing a very good job of trying to create our own defense mechanisms out there. Now, I'm not saying that we're not recreating some of this stuff, but are we recreating it fast enough? If we're sending 300 million rounds, small rounds, of ammunition to Ukraine, how much is left here? When are we going to start seeing that on the shelves? I would assume any time now, especially since if they're putting this out, saying that they're concerned with a shortage, that's going to immediately ramp up a lot of the stateside production of a lot of these munitions. So I look for a lot of that now that's going to store shelves to now be dedicated to the military after this cry for help. So you and I are going to be the ones that see that. Now I found it slightly ironic, but equally infuriating, a few pages down in this same report, where it stated, oddly enough, border security. It would appear that border security in Europe is of particular concern to the United States. We've provided over $34.8 million in non-proliferation, anti-terrorism, demining, and related programs support to Ukraine through the Export Control and Border Security Program. Also, another $6.9 million in regional NADR funding to support sanctions and export control implementations to respond to Russia's aggression. So $41 million to secure their border on the east side of their country. Yet we sit here and watch our children die one by one on a daily basis from the fentanyl that's coming in over our southern border where nothing is being done and very low. When you talk about funding, the funding that's being implemented or used on our southern border as opposed to how it's being used in Ukraine, which is to keep these countries separate, it's being used here in the United States to process people, illegal aliens, so that they can meander on into the country. That's what our border control has been relegated to. They're essentially pencil pushers. They're doing paperwork down there. And it's not effective paperwork to keep people out of the country. It's paperwork to keep people into the country. So, get this, so we know where they are whenever they're meandering around our country illegally, selling illegal drugs, kids, and fentanyl. I'm worried about our ammunition supply, guys. These people are not worried about us. They feel like at any given moment they can ramp up production and probably fulfill whatever they need in the military. But they don't care about us. And we know the anti-gun movement has worked really hard to attack manufacturers and the production side of what we see as the gun community. This right here shows me that this is going to be a shrug of the shoulders when it comes to us. They don't think we have the right to protect ourselves. They don't believe in that right that we have to protect ourselves. And because in many cases law enforcement and even in some cases military lack the type of training that we have from the civilian side, you know, we train a lot. We go through a lot of ammunition. Their culture on the anti-gun side, being the federal government and those folks making those decisions, because they don't train much, they assume we don't. They just assume that. So ammunition in many cases can be more important to us because we require it to train in order to be safer. And obviously they don't care about that. That's why I worry right now. I'm not trying to start a panic on ammunition. What I would say is just be, I guess, guarded in what you have. And I would say this, and this is not just a sales pitch, this is an actual thing if you can actually get your hands on 22s. 22 is not being used in Ukraine. You can get these 22 conversion kits that I talk about occasionally from CMMG. They're relatively inexpensive, and they are going to allow you to still get your training in if you're doing anything rifle related. Handgun related, I mean, now you're going to still be using your 9mm. I suppose you could do something still with 22. But if you're trying to get that type of training in with those NATO rounds, obviously 5.56 is going to be a little bit harder to get, and 9mm. So you can supplant that by using that 22 conversion kit from CMMG and hopefully get that taken care of. Use my discount code if you go, FTATF. Again, FTATF is my discount code. Go pick you one up if you want to. We're going to be giving 2 of them away, by the way, so just want to let you guys know that. But my concern still going forward is I think at some point we're going to start cutting back on our training. And you know what that means. It means people who are less safe, less proficient with their firearms. And of course, the way the wackos on the far left are continuing to chip away at law enforcement and any kind of meaningful things out there that provide funding to law enforcement, which again, we don't rely on anyway. We're our own first responders. But that means that there's going to be less first responders for those who are not protecting themselves. And I fear that the lack of training may be a little bit of a gap in there that's going to cause some issues, and I hope it's not. I hope we're still able to maintain our level of training that we need going forward to protect ourselves and our families.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.